What if I told you the difference between where you are and where you want to be is just one bold decision away? In today's interview, I sat down with Callum Church, a passionate entrepreneur who's turning dreams into reality alongside Simon Squibb's incredible team. And of course, hit that subscribe button because part 2 drops next week with even more life-changing insights. Let's chase those dreams together. Hi everyone, my name is Belly and
If you're subscribed, that's wonderful.
first of all, I would like to let you know that if you're new in this channel, we embrace your authenticity. In this channel, we are always focusing positivity, spreading what is good for you, for mental health, and most importantly, about successful stories. That's why today we're going to dive deep into marketing, content creation, and obviously entrepreneurship. He's the co-founder of HelpBank, and also he's the man behind Simon Squibb's successful rocketing succeed on social media. He has been working on the content creation and social media for Simon Squibb for some time. Let's welcome to Callum Church.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate you coming all this way to interview me, so let's do it. Looking forward to it.
Okay, first of all, let's start with your background. Can you tell us a bit about yourself, about what did you do at school? I know that you started your career as a lifeguard, and then you mentioned something about the anxiety and the way that you were trying to find your path. It was quite complicated for you at the beginning. Can you share about the time at college, what led you to become a lifeguard, and how these early experiences shape your career to nowadays?
The lifeguard job, that was just a Saturday job when I was younger. But growing up in school and stuff, I never really enjoyed education all that much. I just felt like I didn't really fit into this one-size-fits-all system that we have. I know the UK education system and the education system for most of the world really pushes people to go into university. And I knew I didn't want that because I was kind of sick of education at that point. Like you mentioned, I struggled with a lot of anxiety and a little bit of depression just because, yeah, I wasn't comfortable and I wasn't sure what my path was in life. I was being pushed down this certain route towards university and I knew I didn't want to go that way. So that's what led me on to eventually going into an apprenticeship.
Okay, after working as a lifeguard, actually you mentioned that you transitioned to digital marketing and content creation. You started at Foyne, is that correct, right?
Jones, yeah.
Foyne Jones as social media marketing apprentice. And I would like to know what were some of the key skills and experiences you gained there that helped you to the subsequent roles.
Yeah, sure. So I guess going into that apprenticeship, the reason why I did it was because, like many people coming out of school and college, I just really didn't know what I wanted to do. So I just kind of had this idea, like, I'll just do a digital marketing apprenticeship. No real idea why I picked that. I just thought, let's do it. And working at Foyne Jones, which was really like the start of my career, I guess, I picked up content. Really, I fell into doing the company podcast and running the company podcast and running the company social media channels and that kind of thing. And I developed this love for content. I'd always grown up watching YouTube and just loving that platform in general. And I always had the vague idea maybe I wanted to be a YouTuber when I was older or go into content. So I guess this apprenticeship kind of really woke that up for me. And helped me develop some of the soft skills. You know, I was going out and I was recording, managing podcast recordings and that kind of thing, and speaking to people and being on shoot locations. And I was really thrown in the deep end in some ways because I was an apprentice, but I was managing the entire social media strategy at that point. So I learned quick, and that was where I started developing some of my core skills like editing and building out content formats and that kind of thing. So yeah.
Okay, I think that you say something key there, that you were managing the strategy.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you are hired to do one job, which is, for example, content creation, and you end up doing so many things that are not just content creation. It's engaging with the community, is maybe thinking which is the content that you're going to create, and the campaign. Sometimes you kind of develop it because it could be someone else hired that developed the campaign, but you are the owner or the designer of it. Can you tell me a bit about how it is? Think about the campaign itself, or too many roles within one title that you're supposed to be doing. You were hired as content creator, but you weren't doing many things. So can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah, well, you know, like I said, I was managing the strategy, I was managing the social media, I was managing the shoot days and that kind of thing. And I think that's really key for someone, because I think, you know, it gets a little bit too boring if you're just doing one thing over and over and over again. And like I said, this is kind of the system that we have in the UK and the Western world and stuff, where people are pushed into certain job roles where just doing the same thing every day, and they're not really building enough skills to be able to do their own thing, be able to launch their own company, kind of have a bunch of specialists out there, which is good to really go deep, but it's not good to allow people the opportunity to pursue their dreams, or start that business, or start that interview show, or start that podcast. That was a really key opportunity for me to branch out into not just content, but like I said, building some of the soft skills of communication and being organized and having that eye for detail. I think that's been really key for me.
Sometimes we just focus on, you just have to do this and you have to follow the protocols, and then you find something that actually can help, but you are afraid to just think out the box because you need someone else to respond or someone else to approve that idea. So that's why I was thinking that it would be nice to know your opinion. So thank you very much for that. Moving on to your role as the content producer and then as a freelance video editor, how did this position contribute to your growth? Can you share a specific project or achievement that was particularly impactful during this period?
Yeah, so I guess in this period I was kind of really developing my editing skills in a deep way, and I think it was my knack for editing and, you know, building content that looks beautiful and looks good that really unlocked the opportunity of working with Simon. We can get to that in a little bit, I think. I went freelance, so this was my first proper venture into entrepreneurship and working for myself and being self-employed. Yeah, I was able to develop my skills, build up my confidence, especially off the back of a few rough years during college. I'm still building myself back from that. This unlocked the opportunity for me to pursue my own goals. So at this point I was running a podcast. It was called Happy Days with Callum Church. It was a self-development podcast, and this podcast unlocked a lot of opportunities for me.
I actually want to talk a lot about that podcast because I watch so many. Like, I'm really impressed the way that you were 3 years ago. You were pretty aware about the hook and this kind of content ideas that we need to do now. For example, right now you can see everywhere they are talking about, yeah, you have to start the video with the hook and the visual hook and the zooming and the wording, and you already did that back then. I'm not sure if we actually had these formats back then, or you were trying to think out of the box and you actually achieved it pretty good. So what do you think? Did you already know we were already involved on this, or how did you think about this format?
Well, the way that you build out your content and the way that you improve on these platforms, I spent a lot of time trying to understand TikTok as a platform and short form platforms like Instagram Reels and Facebook Reels, running my own podcast and trying to market that podcast through clips on short form platforms gave me the opportunity to try and test out these things and try these hooks and try these techniques to build out these platforms and get some more views onto my podcast and onto me as a personal brand. And that is the way that you build content formats. I think you have to test, and eventually you might find something, and it's like a stab in the dark. You know, you try lots of different things, and then suddenly you find something, and maybe a certain video might pop off, and it gets a little bit more views, and hang on, there's something in this. So then you develop that, and you look at what you did well in that specific video, and you can build on it. And this is exactly the same strategy that I've used with my team as well included to build out Simon socials and build up the success that we have today.
So you've been testing, yeah. That's the most important word ever. Testing all the time. Let's go back to the Happy Days podcast.
Sure.
So I really love the way the Happy Days podcast with Callum Church.
Yeah, it's a long title. We probably should change that.
It's fine, leave it. I think that it is catchy.
Yeah, sure.
It's your own brand. What motivated you to create this podcast, and what were some of the key takeaways from this experience there?
At this point in time, I'd really developed a love for self-development and self-growth, and which led on to my love for entrepreneurship, because it's all part of the same thing. Around this time, I was really starting to understand my own personal purpose and what brought me meaning in life. I've spoken about this a little bit in the past, but when I was 5 years old, like many people do, I realized I was going to die. But for some reason, this moment, I don't know if it was just trauma in my head or something, but this always really stuck with me. I remember the moment so vividly, like crying to my mother. I was barely tall enough to see over the washing machine at the time because I was 5 years old. Yeah, just growing up, that idea about your time being finite, only having one life, that really stuck with me, and that's always really driven me. So I think with the podcast, what I was trying to do there is find out and learn, where do other people find meaning in life, and how do they work towards that, and how can we learn from that and do that ourselves. That's what I was getting to. We still carry that same mission with the work that I do with Help Bank. You know, we're trying to wake people up. We're trying to help people to achieve their dreams and live that life, because you know what, if we only have one life, and our time is finite, then everyone will be doing a disservice to themselves if they're not pursuing their dream and going after their dream life.
That sounds so beautiful. It's like the purpose of your life is to help others to make their dreams come true. Is that?
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Oh, that's so sweet. I would like to talk a bit about Simon Squibb.
Sure.
So during your time with the Happy Days podcast with Callum
Church, yeah.
You had the opportunity to interview Simon Squibb. I watched that. It's so good.
It's
I
funny.
mean, yes, I love it. It's so not funny actually. It's more like super deep, super intense. It's all the time like, yeah, you know, I want to be this person, and I want to become like super I want to become extremely successful, but at the same time I need to spend time with my family, so I need to be like a whole who am I? I'm like a human or like a machine because I want to make money. So I think that it was really intense, all the podcast. So I think that you need to watch it, definitely. And we need to interview Simon one day. That's my aim. How did that interview come about, and what was your initial impression of Simon and his approach to business and content? The key message that you remember, I would like to know, because I know that you talk a lot about mental health and entrepreneurship, as I was just mentioning. So you mentioned something that is constantly in my brain, that is that you are a privileged, confident guy, and I'm quoting what you said.
Yeah. From my perspective, look, I'm a young white male, grown up incredibly privileged. You know, I'm a pretty comfortable guy. What do I need to do in order to get into that space in order for me to succeed as a person?
And Simon Squibb always said that he started this idea of being an entrepreneur because he was basically kicked off of his own home when he was 15. He was shocking. So obviously he said, I need to do something. The only way that I can do something is creating a business. And then he decided which is the business that it was kind of luck, because he was walking and he found something that it was helpful. So it was a bit of everything. He was thinking something that he can do, which is gardening. He saw someone, the opportunity, he got it. So it was a bit of luck. But my question will be, how did you find this interview, and how do you feel about you having a different background than his background?
Yeah, so the way that podcast came about, Simon's social media was a lot smaller back then. He had about 100,000, maybe 200,000 followers on TikTok, but on the other platforms he was relatively unknown. But I always admired his videos that he did on TikTok. I really respected his viewpoints, and I wanted to get him on my podcast, so I reached out to him, emailed him, and followed up, and emailed his PA, and followed up, and then eventually I got a reply. And Simon just wants to help people, you know. So in some ways he was doing me a favor by coming on my podcast and helping me to get, you know, good guests on, and leverage some of his audience to bring some audience over to me. So that's how the podcast came about, and that's how I met Simon in the first place. So that it's interesting because that interview is really like almost like a capsule in time for me. You know, the first moment I spoke to this guy that would have such a significant influence on my life.
It is. I don't want to interrupt you, but yeah, it looks like, I mean, when you are watching this, you can clearly see the difference between that first moment. I noticed that you were slightly scared, were you?
Yeah, a little bit nervous, yeah.
Yeah, nervous, that's the word, because you were, I don't know, you can see it clearly. So you were excited too, and you have so many questions because obviously he's such a personality. It's the same way that I'm feeling now. So probably you are the next 3 years from now. What is happening to your career? But yeah, the second part of the question will be the key impression of Simon at the time, and obviously the key message that you remember.
Yeah, I mean, I just spent that whole interview just trying to learn from Simon, like learn from his experiences and how to apply that into my own life. So you mentioned a little bit about Simon's story, about how he was kicked out of home when he was 15 after having an argument with his mother, not long after his father passed away from a heart attack. This was a really traumatic time for Simon. And I think I noticed something in that a lot of successful entrepreneurs seem to have a similar story to that. They have a lot of trauma and a lot of pain that drives them onto that future success. And this was the same for Simon. You know, you mentioned he was walking down the street one day, homeless, and he noticed a house with a messy garden. It was a big house, a nice house, surely someone that has a lot of money, but they weren't looking after their garden. So he saw an opportunity in that moment. And this muscle in his brain, this entrepreneurial muscle, he says, it woke up. And he knocked on the door and said, "Hi, I'm Simon, I have a gardening company, and I would love to take care of your garden." And they said, "Sure, how much do you charge?" And Simon just came up with a random figure in his head. I think it was 100 or 200 pounds, something like that. 200 pounds, there you go. So you've done your research.
Of course, I know everything about him.
But yeah, 200 pounds, and then from there, that's the start of Simon's entrepreneurial journey. So I was trying to learn from him. My personal background is middle class, very comfortable. I've never really had that much pain in my life, so I'm trying to think of ways and create ways in my own life to drive me to achieve the things that I want to achieve in life, and fulfill my own personal purpose and mission of helping people to live their life to the fullest and achieve their dreams, right? But the lasting impression that I think Simon left on me from that interview is this whole idea about work-life balance. I was asking him questions about in that interview and following on from that interview, because I had the privilege of speaking to him for a little bit longer afterwards. And you know, that moment in time, I was trying to figure out, you know, what the next step for me was. Do I pursue money, or do I pursue happiness, or, you know, how do I organize my time to live the best life possible? And Simon's philosophy on life and business is that it's all part of the same. There is no work-life balance, it's all just life. And if you find something that you truly care about enough, and you can find a way to monetize that, then you can live your dream life every day. You know, you don't have to work a job you hate to save up for that one holiday a year where you can be happy for a week or 2 weeks. You know, you can be on holiday every day by pursuing your dream and living your dream to the fullest.
You go to holidays so frequently, don't you?
Well, I've had the privilege of traveling a lot. I love to travel. I love the perspective that it brings, and I've learned a lot from traveling. Yeah.
Okay, and that was everything for today, guys. Stay tuned because part 2 drops next week. What's the biggest dream you're chasing right now? Let's talk in the comments. See you soon. Bye.